For a review of Hiroshima bombing commemoration, Professor Victor Odoeme, Head of Department, Public and International Law, Veritas University, joins us now. Thank you so much for being here, Professor Odoeme.
My pleasure being here.
I mean, the most important question would be, 80 years on, is the world safer? Have we learned anything from Hiroshima 80 years after?
My answer will be an emphatic yes. And the reason is simple. Shortly after the collapse of the USSR, which marked the end of the Cold War, people began to wonder, was there really a war? And the fallout from that was that people were saying that it was necessary that we had those Cold War because it maintained peace while the Cold War lasted. So the most beautiful of all the things that are happening today is that of all the nine countries of the world that have nuclear capacities, none of them is a rogue state, so to speak. And if you look at the geopolitics of a conflict recently, you find out that you don't see arch enemies that are long distance apart from each other going into conflict. India has nuclear powers. Pakistan has nuclear powers. They are very close neighbors. So the potential of using nuclear weapons in that conflict is not possible because of the distance that the collateral damage could reach. If you throw a bomb from India to Pakistan, the likelihood is that some Indians will be affected based on the distance of the nuclear effect. And also, if you look at North Korea had actually declared itself a pariah state and is only just showing off how much capacity it has so that people can let it be. Now, USSR, Russia, which inherited the powers of the USSR, also is in conflict with the countries in its own geopolitical region, particularly Ukraine. Now, the proximity also will not allow them to use nuclear weapons. And they must be on record that it wasn't just the first time nuclear weapon was used in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. That has been the only. Since then, nuclear weapon has killed no one apart from the factories where they are being produced. And I think the world is better for it because the picture has been painted as gory. No one is willing to try it. So the countries that are nuclear powers...
But it hasn't stopped people from getting them. Yeah, no one is willing to try, but we are seeing nuclear deterrence. People are acquiring nuclear bombs and weapons. Yeah, so it's just for the deterrence purposes. And if I may draw your attention to the fact that there are two schools of thought that regulate arms control in the world. One is the arms control school and the other is the disarmament school. So, but the development along that line is that even though the disarmament school is what champions the nuclear weapons, leading to non-proliferation treaty and the rest of them, what has happened is that people develop these capacities just to show that, look, we belong to this league. So I have it and I can use it.
Yeah, you're careful how you deal with me. And that was actually the reason that sustained the long Cold War between the USSR, former USSR as it then was, and the US, which kept the world on its toes, including regulating small arms and light weapons all through that era. But the moment USSR disintegrated, you found out what happened, that the picture went away from nuclear weapons to small arms and light weapons. So I think the world is better off with many people having that weapon based on the disarmament school.
But you don't think disarmament efforts are stalling?
I don't think they are stalling, because if you look at the precision with which America dealt with Iran in its nuclear voyage, you will see that nobody wants to tolerate a rogue nation acquiring nuclear weapons. And United States is also on top of Israel to make sure that no matter how much they are provoked, they don't touch they don't use nuclear weapons in any conflict.
Well, with survivors of Hiroshima growing older, there are concerns, like we heard from the mayor, that we are losing the human voice of that tragedy. Does this weaken the global push, for peace? When those who witnessed it are not here to tell the story, and although you said the world is better for it, but we still have Gaza, Ukraine, Iran, America, Taiwan going at each other, Israel, Palestinian.
Yes. So the extinction of those who are survivors of the Hiroshima and Nagasaki experience is not that bad. After all, they are supposed to die off at some point. But what needs to be noted is that the collateral damage of that nuclear exercise is far more important than the number of people who died and the number of survivors. So up to 11 kilometers away from ground zero, people were affected even by heat waves. And people who have been born in Nagasaki and Hiroshima within that period from 1945 up to late 60s, have consequences resulting from, one health issue related to nuclear weapons. Some were born without limbs, some were born whichever way deformed. So these things are gory pictures that keep reminding us that, look, never again. Never again. Yes.
Oh yeah, well, from Hiroshima to present day, where does Africa and Nigeria stand in the scheme of things globally? Or is it just really a problem for the major powers?
This is a tricky question. When we talk about security discourse in the world, Nigeria is nowhere to be seen. I'm sorry to say that, but then sometimes it's good to say the whole truth so that you know how to deal with them. We don't have capacity for weapon productions that's reckoned in any way. I think it's only South Africa and Africa that has that capacity. But then Nigeria is, I keep saying, is we have the potentials for everything. I understand there's an uranium store somewhere in Nigeria that can be used to do all that. Even for purposes of generating electricity, we're not using them. We have that capacity. I think a president, maybe President Bola Tinubu has that capacity to start looking in that direction. Let's even start using it, even if it's just for mere electricity.
Not for bombs, because the vice president only recently said Africa, including Nigeria's priority, is fighting poverty and climate change, not pursuing nuclear weapons.
Yeah, but it's also important that we, show up in that, because that's actually what, gives respect to a country amongst Committee of Nations. If you have weapons capacity, other countries deal with you with some level of respect, because of the deterrence position of weapons, cost to in foreign relations. So it's good that we also not only develop that capacity, but also show that we can. Let's prove to the world that we can, but we don't want. But at the moment, I don't think we are doing that, unfortunately.
Professor Victor Odoeme, HOD, Head of Department, Public and International Law, Veritas University. Thank you so much for joining us on the news and sharing your thoughts.
My pleasure always.
Thank you.